Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're talking about something that's been dragging on for weeks, the government shutdown, now hitting day RCT, and still no end in sight. There's a lot of confusion, frustration, and frankly, misinformation out there. So in this video, we're going to break it all down, clearly what's happening, who's involved, and what it actually means for regular Americans. Here's what we'll cover today. What caused this shutdown in the first place, what Congress is and isn't doing about it, how it's affecting workers and benefits like SNAP, what the president's role is right now, when and how this might finally end. No political spin, no chaos, just facts. Let's dive in. Oh, the government shutdown began nearly a month ago because Congress couldn't agree on a funding bill. In simple terms, the House and Senate didn't pass a budget that both sides could support. Republicans, led by House Speaker Mike Johnson, want certain spending cuts and policy changes before reopening the government. Democrats, led by Hakeem Jeffries, say those demands are unreasonable and want to reopen first, then negotiate. So the two sides are basically in a standoff, and the government stays closed until someone blinks. Here's the frustrating part. The Senate is technically back in Washington, but the House is not. Speaker Johnson has called for what he calls a district work period, which basically means lawmakers are working from home instead of voting in D.C. Democrats, on the other hand, are meeting this week on their own to discuss next steps. Some bills have been proposed, like one from Senator Ron Johnson, to pay federal workers during the shutdown, but they failed to move forward so far. In other words, lots of talk, no real progress. Now it really hits home. Because of the shutdown, federal employees and contractors are missing paychecks. And starting November Saint, SNAP benefits, food assistance are expected to stop for millions of families. Over the weekend, the Department of Agriculture even posted a message blaming Democrats for the funding shortfall, a move some experts say crosses ethical lines since federal agencies usually avoid partisan statements. You know, Meanwhile, food banks are seeing a spike in demand, and states are warning they can't keep up much longer. Bottom line, real people are paying the price for political gridlock. President Trump says he's open to meeting with Democrats to negotiate, but only if they reopen the government first. He's currently overseas on a trip to Asia, so any major talks will likely have to wait. Still, both parties agree that until the president personally steps in, this standoff probably won't end. Republicans see him as the ultimate deal maker. Democrats see him as the one calling the shots anyway. Either way, Washington seems to be waiting on the same person. Honestly, not soon unless their serious workers just missed another paycheck. The military is about to miss theirs too. Once food benefits stop and holiday bills hit, public pressure could skyrocket. Some lawmakers from both parties are already getting uncomfortable. Even a few Democrats crossed the aisle last week to support limited funding bills, showing that cracks are forming on both sides. The truth is the shutdown could last weeks longer or end in a single weekend, depending on who makes the first compromise. We're on day 30 of the shutdown. Congress is split, Senate in session, House out. Millions risk losing SNAP benefits and federal pay. President Trump hasn't yet stepped in directly. Both parties are feeling the pressure, but no one's moving first. No? It's easy to feel powerless watching all this unfold, but understanding what's really happening helps cut through the noise. The shutdown doesn't just affect politicians, it affects families, service members, and communities across the country. Stay informed, check updates from reliable sources, and if you're personally impacted, reach out to local food banks or your representative's offices for assistance. Thanks for watching. If this breakdown helped you make sense of the situation, don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll keep bringing you clear updates without the spin. Take care and let's hope Washington gets its act together soon.